the story takes us to a humble little house. This is where we get to meet the protagonist of our story, and his name is Remy, a stinky rat. Nonetheless, this is no ordinary rat. Remy possesses a unique gift. His sense of taste and smell is highly developed. While his fellow rats are content with eating garbage and living a mundane life of scabbing and hiding, Remy finds this way of life disgraceful. He considers it repulsive, and his perspective sets him against the beliefs of his father and his rat colony. Despite living in the conditions of a rat, he is secretly happy because he can indulge his special gift by creating new flavors. His culinary role model is the famous Chef Gusteau. However, this happy existence as a secret chef doesn't last long. One day, Remy persuades his brother to break into a grandmother's house to steal some food. Everything was going smoothly as usual, with the TV on while the old lady slept. But, just as they were about to finish their thievery, a news report about the death of the famous Chef Gusteau comes on, leaving Remy captivated in front of the television like a child. To make matters worse, at that very moment, the grandmother wakes up, and the rodent, along with his entire rat colony, is exposed. All the rodents quickly scatter and manage to escape, but this clumsy rat would have escaped too if he hadn't decided to take Gusteau's recipe book with him. As you can imagine, he falls behind and loses track of his family. The rat managed to escape, but he found himself dirty, wet, and alone in the middle of a sewer, whimpering like a fool. In the midst of his agony, he opened Gusteau's recipe book, and the spirit of the master chef, Gusteau, appeared before him. Gusteau began to offer him various pieces of advice and told him to go to the surface. The rat hesitated for a moment but eventually followed his guidance. Upon reaching the surface, he was amazed to find himself in the most pretentious city in the world. He also realized that he was specifically on the rooftop of the very restaurant owned by Gusteau himself. When this aspiring rat chef peered through one of the windows, he saw how the staff worked inside the kitchen. What caught his attention was a janitor, a nobody in the kitchen, who had taken the audacious and insolent step of seasoning a soup with the wrong ingredients. Obviously, this lowly creature couldn't let this abominable soup stand as it was. That's why he decided to season it properly. Amidst his inattention, he was discovered by Linguini, the janitor. Far from being frightened, Linguini seemed to be equally surprised. The head chef also noticed Linguini near the soup pot and began to scold him for daring to cook like the great chefs. In the midst of all this confusion, one of the chefs served the soup that had caused such a commotion, not to just any diner, but to a culinary critic. The head chef tried to stop him but couldn't, so he had no choice but to wait for the critic's opinion. Then the critic called the chef to tell him it was delicious, and due to these events, the head chef decided to hire Linguini, even though he didn't know what to do because he hadn't prepared the soup. So, he decided to trust the rat, and that's how the friendship between the man and the rodent began. After several attempts to replicate the delicious soup, they discovered that the only way they could cook together was if the rat pulled Linguini's hair to control the movement of his hands. If everything went well, neither of them would be discovered, and they succeeded. With time, Linguini gained more and more recognition in the kitchen. Then the little rat was reunited with his family and informed them about his friendship with the human. However, his party pooper father suggested that it might not be a good idea. One day, the restaurant was closed, and the rodent entered the head chef's office, where they found documents proving that Linguini was Gusteau's son and therefore the rightful owner of the restaurant. Not only was he the best chef in the world, but he was also a notorious ladies' man, a womanizer who went from bed to bed. As expected, the head chef was fired, and the restaurant passed into Linguini's hands. In a nutshell, this guy went from being a mere janitor to becoming the owner of the best restaurant in France in record time. He was also the one who was romantically involved with the only girl in the movie. Linguini was now at the pinnacle of success, and this sparked jealousy in the rat because it wasn't fair that Linguini got all the credit when the real genius behind the dishes was the little chef. That's why the rat called his entire rat colony to have a party in the kitchen. At that moment, Linguini arrived, poured out his heart, and apologized for not giving the rat the recognition he deserved. But when he realized that the rat had invited all his friends, he felt deceived and chased him away like a dog. The rat, after acting like a rat, was deeply remorseful for betraying Linguini's friendship. So, he summoned up the courage and tried to return to apologize to his only friend. At that moment, the restaurant was going through a crisis because the most important culinary critic in the world had arrived. He was waiting for his dish when the rat returned. All the chefs attempted to capture the rat, but Linguini stopped them and told them the truth. He revealed that his success was thanks to this rodent. Linguini hoped his colleagues would support him, but not all of them did. Some of his colleagues decided to abandon the kitchen, and he couldn't blame them. As there were no assistants left in the kitchen, everything seemed lost. But then, something remarkable happened. All the sewer rats arrived to help in Linguini's success. While it was true that none of them were cooks, they were family, and in a family, you support each other in the toughest times. So, all the rodents started to move like a well-oiled machine. The synergy they displayed was nothing short of the beauty of Adonis. The rat knew that the dish he was going to cook would determine the restaurant's fate. He decided to prepare a dish called ratatouille. When the dish was ready and served, he took a taste. The explosive mix of flavors brought back memories of the happiest moments of his life, the times when he savored his beloved mother's delicious dishes. Gusto was so delighted with the meal that it brought tears to the eyes of the unhappy critic. He decided to wait for the chef to offer his congratulations. He waited for hours until he was told that if he wanted to meet the chef, he had to wait for all the diners to leave. Finally, the moment arrived. The moment when Linguini spilled all the details and made it clear that the rat was a true genius in the kitchen. The next day, Ego wrote a review that cost him his job. In it, he publicly expressed that it was hard to imagine a more humble origin for the genius who cooked at the Gusto restaurant, which, in his opinion, was the best restaurant in France. He admitted that he had been wrong all along and that he had only just understood the words of Chef Gusto. Not anyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere. The restaurant closed the next day. It turns out that even though they cooked exceptionally well there, having a bunch of rats in the kitchen didn't meet the health standards. But it didn't matter because they later opened another restaurant. And that's how the movie ends, showing us something in the new restaurant, trying new delicious dishes. The rat now works as a chef without hiding. The rat colony now has a decent place to dine, and people line up to enter the restaurant, which the rat decided to name Ratatouille. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more interesting movies.